Hi, this is Paul. I wanted to give a big thank you for many of you who wrote, sent money into Livingstone CRC, increased your Patreon support of me as a response to my "What Do I Want? Where Do I Want to Go?" video. I'm still making my way through the emails, trying to give personal responses to everyone. And again, thank you for this. It's a huge encouragement to me. It was more than I expected, frankly, and quite gratifying. It impressed my church leadership. The elders were excited and the deacons were nervous. The elders were excited because they saw all the opportunities, and the deacons were nervous because how far can we stretch our pastor? And what if all these people from the internet want to talk to our pastor? I reassured them that that's been a reality for quite some time already, and we're managing it. Maybe not to the liking of everyone, but that's part of the reason I'm not as available as I always would like to be, especially online. In person, I'm quite more available than online, but that's sort of the way things go. There have been a lot of questions, and if you don't listen to the Bridges of Meaning Discord question and answer sessions, a lot of those have come through there, and I've answered some of them this week's. I'll probably post this video Monday, and then the question and answer session Tuesday. Again, as I said before, I'm thinking of starting a clips channel where I'll have probably some of the questions and answers broken down, so you don't have to listen to the whole thing if there's particular questions and answers that you're interested in. But a lot of questions about the two ideas, Livingstone's Online. What is Livingstone's Online? What is Estuary? And I'm getting a sense of who would like to be involved in what, and that's been very interesting. Part of the experience we had in the Bridges of Meaning Discord server was partly because I'm a Christian minister and because at least a significant portion of my YouTube following are Christians. Part of the difficulty is that Christians can sometimes overwhelm the non-Christian elements in estuary type spaces. And that's part of the reason I started Livingstone's Online. So for those of you who very much want, or I'm still very much in the process of building it out. Those of you who want Livingstone, those of you who want specifically Christian content, that will be Livingstone's Online. Those of you who don't like discussions that necessarily entertain heresy, that will be Estuary. And I'll get into exactly sort of how to distinguish those two things as they are. Anyone can be involved in both. You can lurk in both. And a lot of asked, do I need any help? I'm not even sure what kind of help I need yet. So I'm talking with some people. And actually, the questions that I keep getting asked from those of you via email or on the Discord server or in other ways that people talk to me, those have been really helpful in helping me sort of sort out questions and think about it. So keep the questions coming. Now, Livingstone's Online, this is the way I described it to my church council. I said, now imagine hundreds of people silently creep into your church every week and silently stand in the back watching. They don't say much of anything. Most don't say anything. We don't greet them. We don't know their names. And they can come and go and we wouldn't know it. Now, if this were actually happening in a physical real-life church, we would be horrified with ourselves because we wouldn't be paying any attention to these guests. And churches shouldn't do that. We should show hospitality. And so part of Livingstone's Online is going to encourage those who want to sort of come out of the shadows and be known and become a part of a community. In real life, this situation would be a horror, but now with COVID, it's happening all the time. And many churches have recognized that they have larger followings online than they had necessarily in real life. And that means that a lot of people are lurking. And I think that's a good thing. So what I'm trying to do is actually be a better church with Livingstone's Online. Now, is it okay to lurk? Sure. That's just lurk away if that's where you're at right now. But we do want to encourage those who are lurking to come out and be known and to take greater steps in involvement. watching something on the internet is very different from showing up in person, as anyone who's showed up in person in a strange church would know. You have skin in the game when you show up in real life, and so part of Living Stones Online will be increasing that function. How can we do that? We're still figuring that out. Many of you sent contact information. As I figure out the new church management software that I've been working to get to know in the last couple of weeks, I'm trying to figure out how to use forms. And so I'm going to be sending out a form. I'm going to put it on the church website. I'm going to create a Living Stones Online section of the Living Stones Church website and ask people to fill out a form. And so once we have an email address and we know who you are, and you say that this is the kind of thing you're interested in, I'm not going to spam anyone, I hope. That isn't the intention. Then we can hopefully begin to find out how we can have relationships over the internet and how we can know each other online. And thinking about, I've had a men's group that started online since COVID, and we have a couple of guys from Australia that have joined the group, and that's been great fun. And I was a little nervous how the in real life local Living Stones people would take to it, but they've really been enjoying it. And so bit by bit, I'm thinking that we could really have some interesting groups online and really help people get to know each other. Because I'll tell you something about Living Stones. This shouldn't surprise you, having seen who I am. It's a very diverse group with a lot of different ideas, and the church has always been that way. And most people are pretty open, and so people like conversations and getting to know new people. So I'm excited about the possibility of creating online community that involves in real life and online connections. I'm thinking about, when COVID hit, we closed down our Sunday school class. That Sunday school class was one of the more popular things for people to watch on YouTube. And so I'm thinking of having an online Sunday school class. The streaming increasingly in Living Stones it'll still be on YouTube, but it's also going to be on the church website. And if you download the church app, and once I've got that all set, I'll give the link to that. If you download the church app, you can chat on the church app with other people from Living Stones and other people who are watching. And again, that's probably where I'll take the questions and interaction that were a part of my Sunday school class. And, I'm thinking about Zoom groups or Discord server discussion groups. I'm thinking about making special videos for Living Stones Online that online groups can talk about. The elders had talked about Bible study material. I frankly don't like a lot of the off-the-shelf Bible study material that I see. I just don't like it. It's too churchy. And I'm talking Living Stones Online here, okay? Because I've always had this issue with churchiness in some ways. I know that's weird as for a pastor, but that's the way I am. And then I think, for people who commit themselves to Living Stones Online and make a commitment, then I think pastoral care. And obviously, I've done some pastoral care in the videos that I share on my own channel. I've done a lot more pastoral care offline. This is the area that my deacons are worried about me becoming overwhelmed with. I'll probably have two levels, as I do. When someone from my in real life church contacts me, they're at the top of my list because they're my first. I'm the first response. I'm their real life pastor. Probably second is going to be people who are committed to Living Stones Online and in that group and for pastoral care. So again, I'm going to have to work this out as it goes. A number of people have asked, and I got this question on the Discord server again today, is this church? Yes and no. You'll notice I didn't use the word members for Living Stones Online. Partners, participants. If generally speaking, if you're an online partner or participant, you're not formally a member of Living Stones Christian Reformed Church. We have in the past had incarcerated members, official members of the church, where, CRC pastors or Living Stones pastors or elders would visit. I think membership means an online thing. And now if there's a strange circumstance for someone where you really want to be a member of our Living Stones Christian Reformed church, we would talk about that. And there's possibilities for that. We'd come in for a visit, get to know the elders, meet with the council. Generally speaking, to become an official member of Livingstone's Christian Reformed Church, either you transfer in from another Christian Reformed church or you have a council interview where we talk to you about your faith. And that's a member of the church. Now, participants and partners and online leaders wouldn't necessarily need that level of commitment to Christianity. Anybody can walk through the door of the church and listen and go to a Bible study, and churches are very, very open that way. And that's something that I insist upon, because I want churches to be places where people can have their questions answered about Jesus Christ and about the gospel and about church. But all of that is in church stuff. And if you see the picture that I'm posting here, it's pictures of inside the church. That's Livingstone's online. It's church, okay? Difficulty with sacraments? Absolutely. Right now, even with COVID, I administer the sacraments online and people participate at home. How to think about that, theological reflection on that, I'll leave for another day. But it's obviously complex. And we'll be exploring where the lines are in these new tools of complexity. Now, Estuary. I was really impressed by all of the interest in Estuary as opposed to Livingstone's online, and I don't think that's a problem at all. And to try to distinguish them, in some ways, Livingstone's online is sort of at the gate. So if you imagine the church with a building, Livingstone's online is sort of at the door, and it's in and out of the church building. We have partners, participants, small group leaders who aren't necessarily members of Livingstone's Christian Reformed Church. Anyone can participate. If we get some small groups developing and I need online leaders, I'm probably going to look to people that I know in Livingstone's online to have a history of Christian commitment and participation in a local church, things like that, to be, in a sense, vested with that level of authority for Livingstone's online. Estuary is a very different animal, okay? Estuary is outside the walls. And here's a picture of this beautiful village. Estuary is, in a sense, I actually was looking for a picture of a monastery and came up with this. Because Sherry on the Bridges of Meaning Discord question and answer today asked if I think it was Jeff that asked if Estuary was a totally new thing. And I don't think so. I think Estuary has always been with the church. I don't know what St. Paul did in the Temple of Tyrannus in, I keep forgetting, is it Ephesus or Corinth? I think it's Corinth. I see that as estuary. In many ways, in the medieval villages, monasteries were estuaries. These were places where the living water of the church flowed out through the countryside into the sea. As I talked about on the Bridges of Meaning Discord question and answer today, I think a big part of the problem of the church is that churches are building reservoirs. And they're keeping the fresh water and being miserly with what goes out. And maybe I sound like Greenpeace to all sorts of Bureau of Reclamation projects in California. Part of Livingstone's unique history is, I don't know if Livingstone's would have grown if California didn't build so many dams in the 1950s and 60s, and so many Dutch water engineers didn't move to Sacramento to work for the state, and they built dams because California is a place that needs its fresh water. Well, and now there's a lot of questions about those dams in terms of fish migrating upstream, salmon runs, and all that. So in a sense, my estuary project is about taking down the dams, Christian churches, opening up the rivers, letting the water flow out into the sea, and letting the salmon swim upstream, and doing that work. Estuary is outside the walls, but its water from the church flows into it and goes out to bless the world. In my opinion, every or almost every church should have an estuary. I think this is, for churches, the missional space churches need to have. And I think churches do that regularly. All over the United States, churches bless their communities with all sorts of work and projects, and many places in California, there's like Love Ripon and Love Modesto, and again, these are churches, trying to bless the world around them. Tim Keller once said something of the church, that churches should be the kinds of places that if they were to go away, cities would have to raise taxes to try to make up for all of the good that churches have done. Okay? So churches are not estuaries, but every church should have one. A lot of what I've already done is estuary work. The Sacramento Jordan Peterson meetup, that was estuary. The Bridges of Meaning Discord, and that Sacramento Jordan Peterson meetup, we're likely going to rename it and reposition it now. But that meetup was exactly an estuary, because look at what Joey and Rick and Tyler and James and others in the estuary built. They built the Bridges of Meaning Discord. They've done all kinds of other things. And at our last meetup meeting, we meet outside to be safe from COVID and honor the requests of the state of California. We meet outside, and they have other dreams and visions of blessing the community and helping people. That's what estuary should be. And the Bridges of Meaning Discord server is another example of estuary. And so I'm Living Stones, on the Living Stones website that I'm developing, it's going to be a section for Living Stones Estuary, because that's what we're doing. I'm working with John Van Dunk in his church in Chino, California. They're going to start an estuary. The meetup tour that we started in Tucson, Arizona, and Bellflower, California, that we had hoped to go up to Salem, Oregon, and Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington, and Vancouver, British Columbia. My dream would be to help facilitate churches to have a vision to start their own estuaries there, and to meet up with people who are not Christians, whether they be skeptics or atheists or of other religious background or no religious affiliation, to start their own estuary groups and bless their city. And that's what I want to see happen. And so, Chicago had their meetup, and when they had difficulty finding a place, I contacted the Wheaton Christian Reformed Church, and I talked to the pastor, and I asked him if he wouldn't open up a room. And of course the council had to meet and agree, but an estuary started there. And amongst the Chicago guys, they've got some very estuarial ideas about big things they want to start. That is what estuaries are. When the wealth of the church flows out into the world and blesses the world. And the stream is flowing one way. But I believe that what happens is that salmon will swim upstream, and sea monsters will come into the estuary, and river creatures will get to know sea creatures, and new plants will form. I look at what happened with the YouTube channels of The Meaning Code and Mary's channel, and the work of JP, and the conversations I've had with Jonathan Peugeot and John Vervaeke and Sevilla's quality channel. And I look at all of this as estuary. They're not in the church, but the church, just as Living Stones has been supporting me in doing this work to bless the world, we should all be doing this. And so to have conversations, when I think about Nuance Forum and what that has been doing, and having these 10% conversations as Rod talks about, and that's what I want to see happen in estuary. That's different from Living Stones Online. In church, I mentioned this before, I'd always get sometimes criticism in the comments section from Christians, because you're talking about Jordan Peterson too much. You're not talking about Jesus. And so I say, if you want to hear me talk about Jesus, come into the church space. I talk about Jesus all the time there. In this space, I'm going to talk about John Vervaeke and Jordan Peterson and heretics and skeptics and atheists. And this place will be an estuary where where we can meet and where we can have productive, fertile conversations. And I want churches to use their resources to bless the world. That is why God gives the church resources, to bless the world. Now, how can I facilitate this? I registered estuaryhub.com. Whoever has Estuary wants $50,000 for it. And right now, my pockets don't go that deep. And I'm not looking to control Estuary. I'm looking to facilitate Estuary. And so I'm getting my church off of a Squarespace site, and since I already paid for it, I might as well create an Estuary website for that. And so I'll lay out some of my philosophy and theology behind it. And so people who are looking for something that I've written about Estuary can find it there. And I'm going to have should be a directory of estuary plants and animals. So things that people are doing in this space, I can list things there. And so once I get the website up, if you want to be listed, and if you want to be Paul Vanderklay adjacent or Estuary adjacent, let me know, and we'll see if we can adjacent together. And but beware, because we might be adjacent to people that you might not like, and that's gonna be the thing about estuaries. You know, they're not safe spaces. Sea creatures come up into estuaries, so we will have creatures of the sea visiting us. So get ready for it. And you can complain, and you can, and I would just ask that in your complaints, attack ideas and not people, and debate ideas strongly, and bring your strongest case into the arena. That's what estuaries are for. So we'll have a directory of plants and animals in the estuary. Eventually, part of why we're working on the streaming things is we don't have a big facility at Living Stones, but we can hold events. The church in Southern California has a much bigger facility. Maybe if, as that relationship develops, maybe we'll hold some events down there in the Crosspoint Church in Chino, California. Who knows? They like Sacramento, have a nice, manageable airport. I like that about smaller airports. Sacramento is easy to get in and out. The Ontario airport is easy to get in and out. LAX, not so easy. So I like these places with good airports. So events, I hope to do more retreats like I did in Connecticut. If anybody wants to pony up a whole bunch of money, my wife and I are looking at, my wife always dreams about having since I had 5 kids and they're all growing up, I think someday I'd like to live in a compound and have little casitas for me and my wife, and then have a big central area for group gatherings. And so my kids can live semi-independent but close at hand, and we can have space for, and as my wife and I talk about that, it's like, boy, that would be a great place for West Coast. That would be a great place for West Coast retreats. When I did the event in Connecticut, that was a terrific event. It was an overnight event. We had 12 people, and that was about exactly the right number. We had wonderful conversations for those 24 hours, and I'd like to do more of those events. And those would very much be estuary events, okay? Church is over there. Estuary is over here, and the blessings of church should flow out into the estuary, but should flow out unhindered. Gifts are gifts. So, part of what I'd probably do is training and consulting with churches. And so if you're a church and you want to be and you want to have an estuary, we might even endorse groups, because there might be a case where, even with probably the way to not be endorsed by me as an estuary is to be a little too much church online, or a little bit too churchy. So it's got to be free. That's my bias. And so if you're a church and you'd like to explore doing more of this, and you want to, probably you'd bless Living Stones with a gift and get some of my time, that would probably be the way. So these are sort of the kinds of things I'm thinking about right now. And again, keep your questions coming. Let's keep the conversation about estuary. It's the word that I thought of, and it's what I've been pursuing on my channel from the first day I made my Jordan Peterson video. And you've seen me live this in my conversations. When I first started doing the conversations, I started getting emails, especially from Christians, basically telling me I was doing it wrong. And my standard answer for you're doing it wrong is, if you've got a better idea, go do it yourself the right way and prove me wrong. I'm happy to be proven wrong. So that's what I want to do. And so hopefully within the next, I'm giving myself kind of August to keep working on this website stuff, and maybe by September I'll have more stuff out there. But especially Estuary, this is something that we are building together. And I'm especially speaking to you all who are not Christians and don't identify as Christians, because if it's only Christians, it's not an estuary. It's part of the river, and the river is beautiful, and the river is glorious, and the river is wonderful. But if it's only Christians, it's not an estuary. It's just the river. So push back, challenge me, because it's your pushback and challenges that I grow with. And I'm not smart enough to do this. I only learn as I talk to you. And so let's be bold and fearless with one another. What are the differences? In many ways, my church channel, the Living Stones Christian Reformed Church YouTube channel, yes, I do have one. And it has, almost 1,000 subscribers now, but a lot were on for the Sunday school lesson and kind of dropped on curious. That's Living Stones Online, okay? Estuary continues to be my channel. On my channel, I talk to whom I want to. I say what I want to. I'm a minister in the Christian Reformed Church, so, I am one person and I am accountable to my church, but my channel is Estuary. The Living Stones CRC channel is Living Stones Online. Okay, that's one way to differentiate it. A number of you sent in money to the church and said, I want to support Estuary. And then, well, if you send in money to the church, are you supporting Estuary? Yes, because Living Stones pays my salary. And if Living Stones goes away, some of you have said, well, you can be full-time Estuary. Might that day come? Yes, but I think it's essential that I do so as a pastor, because again, part of Estuary is leaning onto the church and saying, be more generous with the world. And estuaries are places that, in the words of a friend of mine, places that people can entertain heresy. And Anselman said, yes, but there should be a voice for orthodoxy. Well, absolutely. The point of Estuary is there will be voices. And so just as I don't want Christians overwhelming estuaries, because then they're no longer estuaries, nor do I want Christians abandoning estuaries. Estuaries are the riches of the church flowing out into the community, a free, open-handed gift. Because why? Christians, I'm talking to you now, because while we were yet sinners, he died for us. And the work of Jesus Christ is grace upon grace. It's gift upon gift. And so Estuary is our gift to this world. And so this is why we're open. And again, I've gotten more criticism from Christians on my channel than from anyone else. And I don't have a problem with that. I understand that. I understand Christians I talked about this in this question and answer. Christianity always has an element of the antithesis. And so I won't banish antithetical claims or noises by Christians. I won't do that. And I know a lot of non-Christians want Christians to stop talking that way. Well, I won't participate in that. There are always antithetical black and white claims. But there are also center set. There are also center set nuances and variabilities. And so both are there, both are needed. And so many of you, I expected Patreon to kind of hollow, but it didn't. A number of you increased your Patreon support. So thank you for that too. Both go to me. Tidely takes less money than Patreon. And according to KG Guy, I guess Patreon's in trouble. And so if Patreon goes away, I'll go to Subscribestar or something like that. But Tidely isn't going away. And so anyway, that if you support the church, you're supporting me indirectly. Like I said, my salary is probably 70% of the church's budget. If you support me on Patreon, that comes directly to me. And so all of your support is welcome. And so thank you for that. I sat and I thought about the amount of time I spend on each week with my videos. And then I thought about what I was getting from Patreon. And I thought, well, I realized if you only considered Patreon for my videos, I'm making less than minimum wage. And so I decided I better not quit my day job. But that kind of changed my mind about that, kind of surprised me when I thought about it in that way. So before I was much more ambiguous about Patreon than I am now, because I see it more. And again, I was reluctant to even start Patreon when I started this thing, because I was afraid of some handcuffs, and Patreon does handcuff me in a certain way, because after you get used to money and it fills, it helps pay bills, and it's kind of like, yeah, that's kind of important. So yeah, I'm still working out my stuff. But I'm going to continue to develop this, and I'm going to try to continue to take this area more seriously. The church always has, and has wanted me to lean into it more, and so I'm going to try and do better. Next steps. I'm working on a form that I'm going to send out if I can figure out how this church management software works. And so that will give people to sort of sign up for Living Stones Online or Estuary or the other. And once I get that sort of differentiated, I'll be able to kind of see where things are at and get some contact information. I don't know if I'll do a MailChimp or just continue to use this church management software. Again, I'm working all this out, and in some ways I started a third job with all this, and I'm figuring that out. So yeah, be patient with me. Part of this is growing for me because I've always been a small church pastor. And what I love about being a small church pastor is I can relate to each of you as individuals. Already, between the numbers at Living Stones and now the numbers who have contacted me, the small church threshold is about 150 to 200, and I'm above that. So there's some growing edges for me too. And so I'm working on communication systems. And if you're really interested in Living Stones Online, subscribe to the church channel. The link to the church channel is always down below in the notes of almost all of my videos. So that's just a little update on this. There'll be more information to follow. I expect the two to differentiate. Again, my channel should probably be mostly Estuary. The Living Stones stuff will be over on Living Stones Online, and we'll see how it goes. So once again, thank you for the financial and emotional and encouragement support that you've been giving me and giving the church, and we'll continue to work on it. And again, I can't stress this enough. You all are teaching me how to do this. I don't know. There's no class in this. And this is something we are building together. And so, I read YouTube comments. This other email is just sort of this stuff, so it isn't as cluttered as my main email box that some of you have. But I don't check it every day. It's not on my phone, so I'm just trying to manage my time with these things too. So thanks for your support, and keep watching. And those of you who sent me an email, look for another email that I send, because I'm still not sure how all this software works, so I'm figuring that out. So thanks again.